What's up guys, I'm Oscar Lema and I'm back with another review. But first, I want to thank you all for your support because now I got more than 100 subscribers in the channel. And those who make YouTube or have tried it will know that this is really difficult. And I'm also very happy to see that both my Spanish and English videos are getting the same amount of visits, likes and comments. Because my idea is to create an international community in both languages, and I hope it stays this even. Today's review was a subscriber's request. He asked me to review Metallica's S&M2, which is a sequel and to some extent repetition of the original S&M from 2000. Let's look at the novelties, similarities and differences between the two. These are two historical concerts that were 20 years apart. The first S&M led to the rise of symphonic metal in general, so a lot of European bands got way more popular after this, and lots of black metal, gothic and symphonic bands too. S&M sounds much bigger than the first because of the place where it was recorded, which is much larger. Let's remember that the first S&M was done at the Berkeley Community Theater, which has a capacity of almost 3,500 people, while the S&M2 was made at the new Chase Center in San Francisco, which is the band's hometown, with a capacity of more than 18,000 people, almost 6 times the size of the first venue. This was actually the venue's opening event. Obviously, there are many differences 20 years later. An older band, more mature, with 4 more albums to their credit. Another bassist, Rob Trujillo, a totally different context. Let's remember that the first S&M was done during a super controversial period for the band. They had just cut their hair, they released Load, Reload and Garage Inc. that were super controversial, and they were right before writing and recording Saint Anger, which made things even worse for them. This was like a turning point in their career. This concert was also screened on theaters last year, and it's not the first time the band does that. Let's remember that they also did this in 1993 with Live Shit, Binge and Purge, which had 3 different concerts, which stacked around 7 hours worth of material. You had to pay 3 different tickets to watch the whole thing. And many people mock Lars Ulrich for his drum abilities. He's probably far from being the best metal drummer right now, but he's definitely one of the brightest minds within the music industry. He knows how to make money. Half of this album are songs that were played on the first S&M, so there is a repetition, and it was obvious and necessary because nobody wants to go to a Metallica show where they don't play the classics. There's also newer generations that wanted to experience this. The orchestral arrangements didn't change too much on the repeated songs, and I don't even think they had much flexibility to make many different arrangements for them. These are fast and heavy songs with not a lot of space to fill. Jason Newsted's backing vocals are deeply missed here. He was like having another James Hetfield in the band, but way more aggressive. Those who know his solo music already know how great of a vocalist he is. But now the backing vocals fall on Rob and Kirk, who are definitely not at that vocal level. There's 2 guys compensating for 1 guy's vocals. I know it's hard and even unfair to compare a band's performance 20 years ago with the current one. They're 2 decades older. They were 30-somethings back in the day, but now they're almost pushing 60. But if there's one thing I really liked about the first one was the precision. They were like kids on an exam. They were way more faithful to the studio versions. And this time it was more of a live feeling, much looser and even sloppy at times, especially in Kirk Hammett's performance. And Lars, who did a lot of feels and sometimes he rushed and dragged, you know, like all drummers do live. It's a live show, right? But surprisingly, James Hetfield sounded great for the most part. Age has not affected his performance at all, and I praise him for that. There were some Russian classical music performances too by the orchestra that show how related classical music and metal actually are. It was also very interesting to see the band join them in one of these pieces. It should be noted that this concert covered the band's entire discography except for Lulu, thank God. So if you wanted to hear I Am the Table with an orchestra, this is not the time for it, and I am thankful. That record is an abomination that should have never happened. I was very curious to hear Saint Anger songs, you can crucify me if you want. But they only did All Within My Hands, which was completely unexpected. They did a really cool acoustic adaptation, but it's like a completely different song. It doesn't even resemble the original at all, but it was very good. I would have really loved to hear songs like Saint Anger, Frantic, The Unnamed Feeling, Some Kind of Monster, but they didn't do it. I know most people hate that record, but putting the trash can snare aside, the songs were good. At least for me, since I heard it with innocent ears at age 12, with no bias at all. It was the first Metallica album I ever bought back in 6th grade. I already knew some of their classics, but I didn't understand much about concepts and subgenres back in the day, so I enjoyed it. Now I understand why people hate it, but I don't, since I received it with innocence and a totally open mind. And now nostalgia makes me cherish it even more. It was definitely a monumental effort trying to summarize almost 40 years of career into a 2.5-hour show, and not to mention the stress of it. I give it an 8 for that effort and for the historical importance of it. And well, this was my review. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And feel free to make any review requests and suggestions. I have several on hold already, so I have some work to do. And you can now support me on Patreon and PayPal so I can keep doing this for a long time and improving my production quality. I'm Oscar Lema. See you next time.